I'm Christian Partica. I'm a core developer for Magento 2. I'm privileged to be today on this stage to share with you some of my knowledge that we've been actually making some migration tools for helping developers migrate from Magento 1 to Magento 2. And by sharing this information with you, I think we get to contribute to our community, and we actually contribute to the greater good, and that's making Magento 2 better. So, who's migrating to Magento 2, right? Have any of you migrated? Okay, cool. So, I know it hasn't been a very easy process. It is actually quite hard. It should be treated as a project of itself. It's not really an upgrade, it's a re-platform. Rather, code is slightly different, though business logic is still the same, right? So it's not easy, but rewarding. We like to think that migrating is not a task. It should be treated as its own project. It should be done in old agile fashion, test-driven development. And should it be done just by developers? No. It should be done again with a couple of stages, and project managers should be involved too. You shouldn't jump just to code. So you should analyze, strategize, go into development, do QA, do staging, do UAT, and go to production. So my presentation today actually focuses on analysis and strategy, because I think those parts are overlooked. And then I prepared a demo, which fortunately it will not have enough time to actually show the demo, but everything is on GitHub. So I will provide a link how that I got from a Magento 1 EAV model, simple blog, and I used the tools to actually migrate it to Magento 2 successfully. That means all the steps. Nobody has done it before. So analysis. We might have two reasons for why, no, two situations when we're migrating. Either we have an extension that we want to port to M2, or we want to actually port a whole installation. And we like to think that there are more companies that port the whole installations, and they run into big challenges. What are those challenges? Well, those installations might have custom extensions. Well, they have extensions from the store, and then they have custom modules, and really it's those custom modules that get in the way of migrating. And those custom modules might have different code done by different people that maybe override extensions, right? And you really have to analyze what those are doing. Probably those features will not be compatible with extensions. Are those extensions available for Magento 2? Are those features actually the same in Magento 2? Because I've seen extensions that were ported, but not with the same features. So maybe you have the custom module that overrides a feature that is not there anymore. So you really need to take a step back and really analyze. So map dependencies between all your modules or your code. Take a look at unused modules. Unused modules, it's a really big thing. Maybe you just disable a module and then you just left it there because you didn't take a look at it. So maybe you want to re-enable, maybe you really want to use those features in M2. JavaScript is completely different, how you will implement that. And then try to migrate everything that you have business logic in presentation, because we're really against having a lot of business logic into your themes and everything. So requirements. Really see what those features you want to port to Magento 2. See if you can leverage the mobile. I know that Magento 1 relied on different I don't know, Foundation or Bootstrap for having mobile views. And here at Magento 2, that will be actually native. We don't encourage you using third party, so really look into that too. See your deployment tools. How will you, what will you do about them? Themes, it's probably the most difficult thing because nothing will be automated. Everything about themes changed in Magento 2. We have a new presentation layer. We have a bunch of JavaScript that we implemented, and what you call UI components. They're really different, so really look into that, strategize. And then you have testing. Testing is a big thing. We really encourage everyone to do testing before they actually go into production. And really, how will you manage those testing? They have to be written. You have to map out what kind of testing will you do. If you don't have the proper resources to do that, then you have to really map out the most important features that you care about. So we have different testing in Magento 2. We have, of course, functional testing, which is done with Selenium, what's called the MTF framework. You have the integration test, which is like more database level. And then you have unit test. Unit test is very important. And Magento, I've seen some presentation today that Magento 1 actually was struggling with unit tests, so we really encourage you to use that in Magento 2. So strategy, if you will look at analysis as to what will you do when you migrate, so strategy, how will you do it? So code, we have a code migration tool. Sounds fantastic enough, but actually it's working. Nobody had a really good interest in it because probably they didn't thought it's working, or they didn't try because it didn't created 100% workable code. Why is that? Because it's nearly impossible, but into my experience after several conversions, I found that it really does about 70 to 80% maybe conversion. It depends on your code, right? So that does not include theming, right? I'm speaking about PHP. There is, this code migration is public on GitHub. I will speak about it in a moment. So see how will you implement those modules. See if you have some custom modules. Will you go with a very monolithic custom module, or you will want to split it to just gain performance or have your decoupling sort out. So it's a good right time to re-architect, because once you go in production, it's far more harder. There is a data migration tool. Data will be ported. This tool actually has been used a lot in all our community. However, it has its caveats, so it's pretty hard to use as well. It ports your data. It does it in several steps. It has integration points, which you can do customization to, because it will migrate a sample data installation from M1 to M2 in about 6 minutes. But if you have anything that differs from that data, it will break. So you have to know how to tackle with those errors. Those errors actually, same as the code migration, work. You have to really know what they mean and work with them, not against them, because a lot of developers give up. That's what we think. So there are really good videos on YouTube about the data migration too. I haven't found any good one about the code migration. So, and then you have the DevOps. You've seen some presentations about DevOps. This is a very important step. Magento 2 has a completely new stack. How will you implement that? So, yeah, I heard about Travis, Jenkins, Bamboo, having your continuous integration, where you will host your Magento solution. We have a Magento Cloud. You can use your own virtual. You can use dedicated. You can use virtual machines. You can use the new Docker, which everybody is crazy about, and we really encourage you to use it. So how will you implement your DevOps? So as soon as you got your strategy sort out, it's time to really get into development. Okay, so again, porting code, it's really good because you get to have the same business logic without human error, right? So if you had good code in Magento 1, we should expect that you have good code in Magento 2. However, you will have the same feature. So Magento 2 has more features than the Magento 1, so those features will not be imported. Okay, so I've done a demo. This demo is actually, I created a simple blog with an EV model. It has like 5 tables with an entity and then their sub int, varchar, and so forth. And it's a simple, published and go into detail and see its publisher and content and so forth. And I will use migration tool, the code migration tool, and then I will use manual corrections. I will have to go really fast about using the conversion tool and the manual corrections. You will see it on GitHub, right? It is published on GitHub, so take a note of that if you're interested about the link. Also, the presentation is there. So the blog looks like this. It's a very simple blog, and then port it to Magento, it will look like this. Right? So how do we do it? Well, we clone the repo, and we install through Composer. We first install Composer because we probably don't have it. We have to include the repo magento.com. The tool actually uses the Magento framework, which is a very powerful framework to actually accomplish this. It uses to convert configuration. It uses XPath. I saw a presentation about XPath. Very good. It uses not regular expressions, but really reflection. So it asserts your code. It doesn't. I saw some migration tools that actually are made with regular expressions, which are not very reliable because you cannot really see what you're doing. You're just guessing. So this is not the case here. So this is how it looks like. It has several steps. First, you get your M1 module, and then you put it into a folder, basically, and you run several steps to actually convert it. Now, you will run into errors because your code, our migration tool might not have your data. It comes with several mapping tools, which we got from Magento 1 Enterprise and Community Edition, but it has no custom code. So we really encourage you to actually use all your custom code, remap everything, and then run conversion, because it will have a bigger impact. It will know how to translate all your code. So there are several differences in classes and in namings. PHP 6, PHP 5.7 has namespaces, right? So it's a really different code. So anyway, we copy our first Magento 1 module, and then we have a look at it. It's a simple structure: block, helper, model, controllers, etc, and SQL, which is the installation. So we create an empty folder, which will be our output. This is how Magento 1 structure looks like. And then we run migrate module structure. What this will do, it will take the structure and put it to Magento same folder structure. Save 17 files converted, and it will look like this. That's pretty cool. Imagine if you have 50 models. You have 50 modules, you will convert everything. It's a day of work, 2 days, I don't know. Depends how much modules do you have. And it does really perfect. It grabs from skin, from media, from views and everything, and design, and puts it together in code and its own self-contained folder. So then we convert the layout. Layouts are the files that you have on your view layout. So you actually will end up, they were like combined, and now it wants to split it. So once it splits it, it actually does more job for you, right? So again, this is a very automated process. It not only splits it, it actually converts it, right? So it maps out, for example, reference container in M1 was not reference container, it was named differently. So here it finds out actually, hey, I was referencing a container which was named content, but probably was named differently, or I have it in custom modules. If you're rerunning those mappings, it will know how to translate. It will know what actually to reference. There are some obsolete references, for example, action, add item, including CSS and so forth, but we're pretty close to actually making a workable layout. Okay, so another thing is config, and by the way, this is done with XPath. Convert config is the big config file, which is the same. It will split everything, and then it will try to convert it to workable stage. So all this config file, which was huge in some cases, it's split it into etc by config frontend, roots, and module. Workable code. It had no problem with it. It actually does the config XML, which is your module configuration. Pretty easy. Okay, so it also splits CSV files, that's translation files, into separate namings, and it puts them together. And then last step, PHP code. PHP code, it will take actually, it does a better job if you provide the M1 installation with all your modules that you're trying to convert and Magento 2. Why? Because, as I said, it uses reflection to actually instantiate some of those classes, so it bootstraps both. It tries to solve dependency injection, which is a big thing, right? And this is how we accomplish that. And you will have a lot of errors here. Unfortunately, your code might not be as good as you thought, so you're probably using those static calls in Mage, get singleton, I don't know, get helper, and you have those slashes, and the name could be completely different. But, and if you're using a variable to actually compute that, our code would not be able to do that. So next is trying to instantiate a class name abstract. Any problems with that? It's a reserved word. So actually it splits, you know, the original was called Titans, it was something like block abstract underscore, and that could work, but now it doesn't work. So custom tables, Titans underscore block slash post, we can actually run table mapping against our own installation, and that will update, in fact, it will create some new mappings from all our code, and but it will probably take out some of the enterprise. I didn't run this against enterprise. The original code was. So please, if you do that, just merge everything together back, because you might have better results. So now, when we rerun this, I didn't get here the same error, right? I get one error less. So actually what I see is, because before this, it was like this. Obviously, Magento 2 cannot process this. And I got the final name, which is, it was not slash post, it was post underscore entity. Pretty good. And it did that by itself. And then this Mage calls, which is the evaluated, so please get rid of all of that. Our code cannot convert it. Right? So move that string, and our code would actually insert the helper as a dependency into the constructor if it can instantiate the parent class or the class that is available on M2, and then it can do it. Now, singleton, get model, get table, helper, init, are some of the things that you have to worry about. And then fail to instantiate block abstract. It tries to actually bootstrap Magento 2. However, I'm trying to port something to Magento 2, and it's trying to instantiate something that it wasn't ported yet, right? Even if that name would have been good, I still don't have that in Magento 2. But I still have good enough code that I can create a module with, and I think I can port that right now to Magento 2, and on the next iteration, I will be able to actually create all those dependencies because it will be able to instantiate that parent class. So in this case, for example, I just have an abstract block, and I have 2 blocks which inherit from that abstract. Okay. You can see here how everything looked like. M1 code and M2 code, right? Looks pretty nice, actually. You can see that abstract clad abstract, and that's not really helpful, but so actually using the PHP Storm, I can really see that what's happening. And anyway, it's a bunch of iteration after iteration after iteration. I can tell you that with a day's worth, I could really get this code to actually work using this tool. So please, if you actually are interested into this tool, download it, clone it. You can contribute. We're encouraging everybody to contribute to all our code base, including Magento 2. Tools. Yeah, happy to help, and we will have a look at your code if you do a pull request. So again, be sure that you will have a look at all the steps because there are quite many. And finally, I got like working code, and that's it.